Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank all of you for being here. This day of the hearings often gets less attention, but it is very important to us, and you are performing a very important service. I particularly want to thank Ms. Bensky and Ms. Boss for sharing your stories and reliving a lot of the pain that you have been through. Ms. Bensky, I don't know whether you were here yesterday when I asked Acting Attorney General Blanche to apologize, and I'd just be interested in your reaction to his response.
Yeah, I think it was the most that we've gotten from him, and that was a moment where there was a touch of humanity to say that we do understand that there was, in fact, failure here, because he's been on the record multiple times saying that nothing was mishandled. And as a survivor who literally saw nude images of friends and had my own information exposed all over the place, to tell the world that this had not been mishandled was just so absolutely egregious. Like anybody from here to Mars, no matter what political affiliation you're with, can see that like your government should not be, sending out nude photos of you, obviously. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Very well said. Let me ask you a general question. And you don't have to give me an exhaustive answer today, and I know there are others in the room who may want to answer this question as well, but what should we demand of the Department of Justice to make things right, to make things better?
Yeah. We've always just been looking for accountability and for this case to be handled correctly, because even from the very start of this case, we have not seen it handled the way anybody would normally prosecute something. So we are looking to get to the bottom of why our perpetrators were never held to account. How does the largest sex trafficking ring in this country exist when only 2 people have been found even remotely? I mean, Epstein's dead, but Maxwell is the only one who has been held to any sort of account, and she's in a lower, a lower security penitentiary at this point. So, I think we are owed answers, and we are owed, justice. For us, we get that question a lot of what does justice look like? I think, yes, the culture shift is part of it, but really, like, having your government stand up for you and stand up for what's right. And, there's a chilling effect that it sends to survivors everywhere when their government is outing their personal information. Other survivors are not going to want to come forward, right? And so we need to make sure that we are getting all the information with these cases. So I think we really just hope that the government will take it seriously and start investigations.
Accountability.
Accountability, yeah, always.
And I think a working hypothesis here is that accountability is difficult when rich and powerful people are potentially...
It's always been the vulnerable versus power for this case, for most sex trafficking cases, or all sex trafficking cases, really. And it is about how the powerful consistently exploit the vulnerable, and that is what we see a lot. I mean, I have a 6-year-old son, and I teach him that accountability matters every single day, and I hold him to account. Why can't we hold our government to account?
Well, I will just say your voice and face has been a very powerful antidote to the wealth and power that may be brought to bear here, and I hope that this forum will encourage you and others to come forward as you've done so courageously.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I do also want to mention that Virginia Giuffre has been monumental in all of this, and I think it would be unfair to not name her, because her deposition holds the key to quite a few things. So if you started her deposition, you can start really investigating.
Thank you. Ms. Oyer, I want to ask you about the pardon that I mentioned yesterday. I asked Todd Blanche about it. David Gentile, sentenced to 7 years for a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme that involved a 7-year sentence. He served 12 days of it. before he was pardoned. He boasted to his fellow inmates that he was going to pay $2.5 million to someone to get him out. Father Frank Mann told one of his parishioners that he had talked to President Trump to get David Gentile out of prison. These are facts that have been publicly reported. The investigation into the potential impropriety of this pardon was shut down, allegedly, by high officials in the Department of Justice, talking to the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York, Joe Nocella. I know you're not familiar with the facts. I'm not going to ask you whether you believe that that reporting is true. Mr. Blanche never denied it. He basically said, well, it was a leak. Sometimes leaks actually involve truthful information. But the point that I think is lost here is that that pardon involved $16 million in forfeiture to innocent victims, many of them retirees who were depending on that money to survive. And he will no longer be required to do restitution. So his ill-gotten gains, some of which he may have used to pay for his clemency, so to speak, are not going to go back to the people who were cheated, his victim, as a result of that pardon and clemency. So I guess my question to you with this introduction is essentially, are victims and survivors often re-victimized by pardons that are unjust or unfair to them? And shouldn't we have them given a voice and recognize the Constitution gives the president unlimited authority? And it's one of those powers that's unchecked, rarely. But isn't there a need to give the victims a voice in this process?
Yes, Senator. The millions of dollars that Mr. Gentile stole from his investors, unfortunately, are a drop in the bucket of the restitution that victims have been deprived of as a result of President Trump's pardons. He has forgiven over $1 billion in restitution that is owed to victims of fraud, as well as money that is owed to taxpayers by people who committed white-collar crimes and who have served, in many cases, none of their sentence and repaid none of their money. That is not consistent with the regulations that the Justice Department has in place for evaluating applications for pardons. The Justice Department historically has looked to see that people have repaid their debts before recommending clemency, but this president is using clemency in a strategic, transactional way to forgive huge amounts of debts owed to taxpayers and crime victims.
Senator Durbin.
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News. Donate now, or even better, start a monthly contribution today.